Imagine this. You're a high school athlete, you're standing at the plate, and a baseball bat, it's flung from a classmate's hands. It strikes you just directly in the face.
And this was, truly catastrophic. The author of the research we looked at for this deep dive had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures,
2 shattered eye sockets. And the part that always gets me is that the sheer air pressure from the impact actually pushed his left eyeball momentarily out of its socket.
It's the ultimate setback, physically and mentally. It put his life, and definitely his athletic dreams, on hold, indefinitely.
But his story is really the foundation for the core thesis here.
Right. It's all about how he came back from zero. His recovery, his eventual success, and we're talking elite success. He was named Best Male Athlete at his university, made the ESPN Academic All-America team.
Yeah, but that wasn't from one big, heroic moment of change.
Not at all. It was built, as source after source shows us, on tiny, daily, persistent habits.
Things like his sleep schedule, his studying, the small, incremental strength training.
Over years.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We've collected a ton of excerpts detailing this whole philosophy behind habit formation. And we're really focusing on why these small, continuous improvements, these atomic habits, can yield massive and sort of nonlinear results over time.
Exactly. Our mission today is to distill that core framework, give you the key strategies for building good systems, and just as importantly, for breaking the bad ones.
We want to give you the blueprint, really, how to make those micro improvements actually stick.
And turn that high-level theory into something you can actually do, daily action.
So let's start with that foundational idea, marginal gains.
Mm-hmm.
If you want just, indisputable proof that small changes compound, you really have to look at British cycling.
Oh, absolutely. Before 2003, that team was basically synonymous with failure.
It was so bad that a major European bike manufacturer actually refused to sell them bikes.
Yeah, they were worried that just being associated with the team would damage their reputation. That's how bad it was.
And then Dave Brailsford arrived, and he brought this philosophy of aggregation of marginal gains.
A strategy that was, almost absurdly simple on the surface.
Right. Break down everything related to cycling.
Everything, from the machine itself to the mental state of the rider.
And just improve each part by 1%.
Just 1%. And what's so memorable about this is how obsessive they got with the details.
It wasn't just about, a lighter bike frame.
Yeah.
They redesigned the seats for better comfort. They were rubbing alcohol on the tires for better grip.
But it went so far beyond the bike, they started using these electrically heated shorts.
Why?
To maintain the ideal muscle temperature in that little window between the warm-up and the actual race.
That's incredible.
And they even hired a surgeon to teach the riders the proper way to wash their hands.
To reduce colds.
To reduce the number of sick days. Think about that. A surgeon teaching world-class cyclists how to wash their hands.
It really just emphasizes how exhaustive the system was.
Yeah.
But the craziest example, I think, was the team truck.
Oh, yeah. The environment was just as critical as the athlete. They figured out that even tiny dust particles could compromise the finely tuned bikes.
So what did they do?
They painted the entire interior of the maintenance truck white.
So they could see the dust?
Instantly. Any speck of dust was immediately visible and could be cleaned up.
So you stack hundreds of these tiny 1% improvements. The right pillow, better hand washing, a cleaner truck. What happens 5 years later?
The outcome is exponential. That's the key takeaway. In just 5 years, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, they won 60% of the gold medals in road and track cycling.
60%.
And then 4 years after that, in London, they set 9 Olympic and 7 world records. It was a complete transformation.
But it wasn't a sudden jump. It was the cumulative effect of all those tiny, almost invisible improvements.
Which brings us to the hard part, the human difficulty.
The valley of disappointment. This is where most people quit.
They quit right there because we all expect progress to be linear. I work for 2 minutes. I should see 2 weeks of visible improvement.
Right. But the reality is that effort often stacks up invisibly. It's like storing energy. And you feel stuck in that valley because what you're doing right now, it just feels pointless.
It's so frustrating because the progress isn't visible yet. The sources have this great analogy about bamboo.
I love that one.
It spends 5 years growing these massive deep root systems underground where you can't see anything.
And then it shoots up 27 meters in just 6 weeks.
All that work was happening. It was just foundational.
It's the difference between motion and action.
Yeah.
Motion is planning, reading. Action is the effort being stored, like tectonic plates building tension for years before an earthquake.
So mastery just requires patience during that storage phase.
Which is why the San Antonio Spurs, one of the most successful teams in sports history, kept that Jacob Riis quote in their locker room.
Remind us of that quote.
Well, he talks about watching a stonecutter just hammering away at a rock maybe 100 times and not a single crack appears.
But then, on the 101st blow, the stone splits in two. And Riis realized the final blow wasn't the one that did all the work.
It was all the blows that came before it.
Exactly. You have to believe the effort is never wasted. It's just stored potential, waiting for that tipping point.
So if that payoff is always delayed, how do we keep going?
Well, this is where we shift from goals to systems.
We fixate so much on what we want, the goal, instead of how we get there, the system. So here's the challenge from the source material for you, the listener. If you totally ignored the goal, say winning a championship, and you just focused only on the daily practice, would you still succeed?
It's a question that makes people a little uncomfortable. We're so wired to chase the destination.
But the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Goals are useful. They set a direction, a compass point. But systems are what actually create progress. If you spend all your time staring at the scoreboard, you're not focusing on what you need to do to change the score.
It reminds me of that famous Bill Walsh quote, "The score takes care of itself."
Exactly. Focus on the process. The result is just a lagging indicator of the habits you already have.
And focusing only on goals is actually dangerous.
It is. It creates this artificial either-or conflict. You either succeed or you fail. It restricts your happiness to this one narrow scenario.
What happens when you achieve it?
You feel a brief moment of elation, and then what? You either get stuck or you need a new, bigger goal.
And if you miss it, you feel like a failure, even if you made huge progress.
You have to find satisfaction in the process itself. The system has to become the reward.
So it's not about the destination, it's about enjoying the journey.
In a sense, yeah. It's about falling in love with the process, not just the result. Look at the entrepreneur Brian Clark, who struggled for years to quit biting his nails.
Okay.
He only succeeded when he started taking pride in how they looked after his first professional manicure. He shifted his focus from the goal, stop biting, to the system, care for my nails.
So that feeling of pride reinforced the new behavior. It shifted his identity.
Exactly. And that's the perfect transition point, hacking the behavior change loop itself.
All right, let's get into the practical framework then. The 4 laws of behavior change. To build a good habit, you have to make it visible, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
And the inverse, of course, is how you break a bad one. Make it invisible, unattractive, hard, and unsatisfying.
So, law 1, make it visible. This is all about the cue, right? The trigger.
It is. Awareness is the first step. Carl Jung had that great line, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
And that awareness is so tied to our environment. Motivation is, frankly, overrated.
Your environment is much more important. Visual cues are the most powerful catalysts for our behavior. What you see is what you do.
The Massachusetts General Hospital cafeteria study is the perfect example of this.
It's brilliant. Dr. Thorndike wanted to improve eating habits without ever talking to anyone.
No motivational posters, no lectures.
Nothing. They just changed the choice architecture. They moved bottled water right next to the cash registers where only soda used to be, and they put water everywhere else in the room.
And the result of just making water more visible.
Over 3 months, soda sales dropped by almost 12%, and water sales shot up by nearly 26%.
Just by rearranging the room.
Just by making the good habit the easiest, most obvious choice. So the practical takeaway for you is using what's called an implementation intention.
Don't just say, I'll meditate more.
No, you get specific. I will perform this behavior at this time in this location. It removes the need to make a decision in the moment.
Okay, so if law 1 makes it visible, law 2 is about making it attractive. This focuses on the craving.
Right. You have to tie the new habit to something you already enjoy. You have to leverage your brain's dopamine system, and that's where temptation bundling comes in.
You pair something you want to do with something you need to do.
Like that engineering student, Ronan Byrne.
Oh, the Netflix bike.
The Netflix bike. He loved Netflix, but he needed to exercise. So he programmed his stationary bike so it would only play Netflix if he was pedaling at a certain speed.
So he made the chore, the exercise, the gateway to the reward he actually wanted.
Precisely.
But that begs the question, why are bad habits so attractive right out of the box?
It comes down to something called supernormal stimuli. Our primitive brains evolved to value salt, sugar, and fat because calories were scarce.
And survival depended on finding them.
Exactly. Modern junk food is engineered to be a hyperactivated reward. It hits our brain's reward system way more intensely than natural foods ever could.
It's designed for maximum craving.
Which leads us to Law 3. Make it easy. The response. You have to reduce the friction between you and the good habit.
The source material has a great analogy for this.
The bent hose.
Yeah, trying to force more water through a bent hose is like trying to brute force motivation.
It's hard and inefficient. The easier way is to just unkink the hose.
Design your environment so the right action is the path of least resistance.
And you can automate that ease. The story of the first cash register is fascinating.
Tell us.
So, John Henry Patterson, he owned a small shop back in the 1800s, and he was losing money because his employees were stealing from the till.
A common problem.
So he bought one of the first cash registers. It automatically locked the cash drawer and issued a receipt after every single sale. Employee theft stopped overnight.
He automated the good behavior. He made stealing physically hard.
He used a commitment device. And we can do that on a smaller scale with the 2-minute rule.
Right. Scale the habit down so it takes 2 minutes or less.
And the point isn't about what you accomplish in those 2 minutes. The point is to master the art of showing up.
The ritual becomes the start of the real habit.
Twyla Tharp, the famous choreographer, is the perfect example. She says her daily habit isn't the 2-hour workout.
No.
It's the act of hailing a taxi and telling the driver where to go. Once she's done that, the workout is inevitable. The ritual is the gateway.
I love that. Okay, finally, Law 4. Make it satisfying.
Yeah.
The reward.
And this is maybe the hardest one, because there's a fundamental misalignment of consequences.
Bad habits feel good now, but the outcome is bad later.
And good habits are often unpleasant now, but the outcome is good later.
So we have to find a way to get an immediate reward for the good habit.
You have to artificially shift the timing, create an immediate, tangible reward for those long-term actions.
This is where visual feedback is so critical. The story about the broker.
Trent Dursmid, he used the paperclip technique. Every morning, he started with 2 jars. One was full of 120 paper clips.
And the other was empty.
Right. And after every single sales call he made, he'd move 1 paper clip from the full jar to the empty one.
It's so simple, but I can see how that would work, that little visual cue.
It provided instant satisfaction. It reinforced the behavior with every single call. And because he closed that gap between the effort and the reward, he ended up generating $5 million for his company in 18 months.
Wow. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about natural talent and identity, because what really stood out to me from the sources is how our environment determines whether our genes are a blessing or a curse.
Context is absolutely king. We think natural ability just leads to success, but it's entirely dependent on the arena you're playing in.
Right.
Look at 2 phenomenal Olympic athletes, Michael Phelps, the swimmer, and Hicham El Guerrouj, the distance runner.
Okay.
Phelps is about 18 centimeters taller than El Guerrouj, but they have the exact same inseam measurement.
Wait, really? Their legs are the same
The
length?
same length, which means Phelps has a very long torso and relatively short legs. That's perfect for swimmingless drag, more leverage.
And El Guerrouj.
He has the opposite. Long legs and a short torso. Perfect for distance running. If they swap sports, they would both be failures at an elite level.
So their genes are only an advantage in the right environment.
Exactly. Genes don't predetermine your ceiling, but they do predetermine your areas of least resistance, where success will feel easier.
So for you, the listener, the takeaway is, if you can't win the game, everyone else is playing.
Create your own game. You don't have to be the best at one single thing. You can be the best at a unique combination of things.
Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, is the ultimate example of this skill stacking.
His skills in isolation were just average. He could draw okay, but he wasn't a world-class artist. He was pretty funny, but not a great stand-up comedian. But he combined those 2 average skills with a third thing he knew well: business and office culture. And that combination created a niche where he had almost no competition.
He found the game he was built to win.
He found his game.
Which is brilliant. And if habits are all about who we believe we are, then mastery requires continuous reflection on that identity.
Yeah, that's where things like an annual review or an integrity report, which the sources mention, come in. You have to check in.
To avoid the danger of a fixed identity.
Exactly. If your whole identity is tied to a fragile label like I am a CEO or I am a soldier,
The loss of that label through retirement or an injury can be devastating.
you feel lost because your sense of self was too rigid.
So the goal isn't just to be a writer. It's to be a person who writes every day no matter what. The goal is a flexible identity.
It has to be flexible, like water flowing around an obstacle. It allows you to move with changing conditions, not against them.
We've covered so much today, the incredible power of those compounding 1% gains.
Ditching goals for systems.
Designing your environment to make habits visible, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
And finally, finding the right game for your own inherent talents.
So if we try to connect this all to the bigger picture.
The goal really isn't about achieving a destination. It's about maintaining momentum. It's like that ancient Sorite's paradox. When does a single coin make a person rich?
No single coin does it.
No single step matters on its own. It's the accumulation that counts. Success is just the product of your daily habits. The ultimate goal is just maintaining that system of accumulation.
That's a powerful way to sum it up. So here's a final thought for you to explore on your own. We've talked about defining success by your systems. But what would it look like if you focused on defining success not by what you achieved, but by how flexible your identity is in the face of inevitable ongoing change?
That's something to mull over.